Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sangham namassami. Dear friends, we are continuing our sutta study in connection to the practicing for peace in a world on fire, which is the theme that we declared for this 3 months of the Vasa in 2024. I have had the idea and wanted to explore with you how the wisdom part of the Dhamma is how it is a practice for peace. We know that the Arahant, the enlightened sage, having gone beyond any kind of conceit, is one who is not disturbed um, by any kind of contact, and that he is called a sage of peace because of that non-disturbance. So there's the profound inner quality of peacefulness. I wanted to seek out more suttas that would give insight into how is it that wisdom would lead to peace. And I noticed in the Kosambi Sutta, which is a very famous sutta about uh, uh, the comparison of disharmony and harmony in the Sangha, that there are a very a different kind of description about one who has the noble view, or I should say a community, in which there is a shared commitment and possession, attainment of the noble view among a group which is accomplished in view. That means among a group of monastics or practitioners in community who all have stream entry or one of the levels of the noble attainments, all the way up to the level of the Arhat. That's the meaning of that. So I would say, well, yes, if within a sangha, within a community, if the members were noble, um, yes, it would be like heaven. It would be so harmonious, and likewise any other situation that one may be in. How wonderful and harmonious it is to be in the company of those who possess stream entry, who are those who possess noble attainments. So I'd like to invite us to read this sutta, and then I may briefly quote a couple of other passages that seem to indicate how is it that when we are wise, we become peaceful. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to open the sutta. So I have heard At one time, the Buddha was staying near Kosambi in Gosita's monastery. Now, at that time, the mendicants of Kosambi were arguing, quarreling, and disputing, continually wounding each other with barbed words. They couldn't persuade each other or be persuaded, nor could they convince each other or be convinced. Then a mendicant went up to the Buddha, bowed, sat down to one side, and told him what was happening. So the Buddha addressed one of the monks. Please, monk, in my name, tell those mendicants that the teacher summons them. Yes, sir, that monk replied. He went to those monks and said, Venerables, the teacher summons you. Yes, Avuso. Yes, Reverend, the monks replied. And they went to the Buddha, bowed, and sat down to one side. We may recall that there is more than one sutta, more than one story about the quarrelsome monks of Kosambi and how it came to be that the Buddha had exhorted them 3 times to give up their quarrels, but they didn't want to listen to the Buddha and said, don't you worry about it, we'll take care of ourselves. And so the Buddha, who had been planning to spend Lavasa staying with those monks, but he left them since they wouldn't listen, and went into the jungle where he stayed by himself, and he was served and attended to by several wild animals. Um, uh, and then the lay people were so distressed and upset because they were hoping to have the Buddha with them for the Vasa, but they didn't. They just had this group of quarreling monks, and so they decided to stop giving alms food, and the monks starved to death until they finally became willing to listen. Um, so that's all skipped over in the sutta that we're reading, or just coming straight to the teaching that the Buddha gives to these monks. Is it really true, mendicants, that you've been arguing, quarreling, disputing, continually wounding each other with barbed words? You can't persuade each other or be persuaded, nor can you convince each other or be convinced. Yes, sir, they replied. What do you think, mendicants? When you're arguing, quarreling, and disputing, continually wounding each other with barbed words, are you treating your spiritual companions with kindness by way of body, speech, and mind, both in public and in private? No, sir. So it seems that when you're arguing, you're not treating each other with kindness. So what exactly do you know and see, you futile men, that you behave in such a way? This will be for your lasting harm and suffering. I'm just reading this part quickly because I want to come to the 6 warm-hearted qualities. Mendicants, these 6 warm-hearted qualities make for fondness and respect, conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. Piya Karana is fondness, Garu Karana, respect, Sangahaya is called inclusion or community, Avivadaya is harmony, and Samakya is unity. Now we come to these 6 qualities. First, a mendicant constantly treats their spiritual companions with bodily kindness, both in public and private. This warm-hearted quality makes for fondness and respect conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. Then they treat their spiritual companions with verbal kindness. And they treat their spiritual companions with mental kindness. So, a bodily kindness is something that's coming from the type of volition, a kindly intention leading to some physical action, or else a kind intention leading to some verbal speech, or a kind intention leading to thoughts of kindness. That's the first three. And then the fourth, a mendicant shares without reservation any material thing that they've gained by legitimate means, even the food placed in the alms bowl, using them in common with their ethical spiritual companions. That's those spiritual companions who are possessing sila. And then, furthermore, a mendicant lives according to the precepts shared with their spiritual companions, both in public and private. Those precepts are intact, impeccable, spotless and unmarred, liberating, praised by sensible people, not mistaken, and leading to immersion, or you could say leading to samadhi. That is to say, leading to the what's called the concentrated states of meditation. We'll see further on that it's possible for someone who possesses this warm-hearted quality to make a mistake on one of the minor precepts, which is able to be cured. And if they do so, they will immediately acknowledge it and undertake to not repeat the same unskillful behavior as before. So this is not this quality of being impeccable, spotless, and unmarred doesn't necessarily mean that each bhikkhu is always 100% spotless and unmarred, but it means that the set of the precepts themselves have that quality of impeccability. And then there's the high motivation to keep the entire set in a way which is intact, impeccable, as pure as a polished conch shell, as the way it's described. And you can see that in nature, the conch shell, I guess, like many other forms that you see in nature, it's extremely strong. Nature has made it so that it's able to protect the creature who's living within that shell. Then the last one, this is the one that I want to discuss the most. A mendicant lives according to the view shared with their spiritual companions, both in public and private. That view is noble and emancipating and delivers one who practices it to the complete end of suffering. This warm-hearted quality makes for fondness and respect conducing to inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. These six warm-hearted qualities make for fondness and respect, inclusion, harmony, and unity without quarreling. Of these six warm-hearted qualities, the chief is the view that is noble and emancipating, and delivers one who practices it to the complete ending of suffering. It holds and binds everything together. It's like a bungalow. The roof peak is the chief point which holds and binds everything together. In the same way, of these six warm-hearted qualities, the chief is the view that is normal and emancipating, and delivers one who practices it to the complete ending of suffering, holding and binding everything together. I'm going to take a pause here and invite you to give your best guess. Why does the shared right view have this power? Okay.
My guess would be that once you have the right view, everything else will sort of flow from it quickly or slowly, but in some fashion. Once you, I guess, perceive things accurately, you'd be like, well, why would I fist fight my brother in robes? That would just wouldn't help me. So you like the view would already be like influencing the action.
Thank you. Do you have a guess? We spoke earlier. Uh, did I say Maureen making?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Um, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I had a question earlier on in the series of things. It was like you were, there seemed to be an assumption that everyone in that community was on board. And that then it would all flow together. But it struck me that the way it was worded, they were existing in a community with all this fragmentation in it, and if half of them were on board with it, would be that they be the only ones that they would behave together and gradually hope the rest of them had come on board, or how would it work actually? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, and that's that's always the dilemma in our monastic communities, because even no matter how much those, no matter how much we develop, there will always be aspirants and newcomers coming along who maybe will not yet have arrived. In the case of the monks of Kosambi, there was one group who were a specialist in Sila, in the precepts of the Vinaya, and then there were some visitors uh, who were specialists in meditation.
Mm.
And they came to have a quarrel about a minor point of the Vinaya. And the meditating monks, I guess, thought, uh, why should I apologize? This is just a stupid formality. And the Vinaya monks thought our unity as a community depends on being unified in the perfection of the way that we're holding our understanding of the Vinaya all together, with everybody being on board, and not room for diversity. Um, when I first met Buddhism many decades ago, right view sounded to me like a catechism, as I had learned it as a child, as a Catholic child. I had been taught the catechism by the nuns, and we had to memorize it and recite it, and it was a prerequisite for uh, being saved, to agree with that catechism, uh, which did not really fit with the feeling or what I was experiencing with Mataji and the other monks who I encountered. I didn't experience anything like, a nun wagging the finger saying, you must believe this. Instead, they were teaching a way of practicing that was, building up towards a kind of a, a, a realization. But there was a tremendous amount of um, a kind of an open-mindedness. Uh, there's I want to point out from a couple of other sources. There's this term about being accomplished in view, which is called Dita Sampanna, and that's a description of one who has uh, uh, obtained the crossover. They've obtained stream entry or any of the noble levels, and there's another term which Bhikkhu Bodhi translated as one who has made the breakthrough. This is the transformation of one's understanding, and the contrast of the wrong view versus the right view. It's contrasted with many different kinds of speculative views, where seekers and sages who have got a concept about self are struggling to understand what the origin and the destination of the self is, and to reconcile that with the karmic the results of skillful and unskillful actions. And basically, they can, this is something that came up last week we were talking about the truth. And the truth is it's not that simple. That's why the Buddha said that this Dhamma is subtle and uh, uh, hard to see. Um, uh, so then one has to get beyond the concept about the self in order to be able to truly see conditionality or causation, which could be described in terms of dependent origination, or it could be described in terms of the Four Noble Truths. A way of seeing which is onward leading, taking one to the complete stilling of all formations, relinquishing of all acquisitions, the destruction of craving, dispassion, cessation, and nibbana. So in that way, the right view is it's like a kind of an onward leading process or approach, a method rather than a catechism. But there is a line, sort of like a line in the sand, that it can't be made to work until the false concepts about the self have been cleared away. So it's like that has got to drop off. And when monks who are trying sincerely and making the effort fall into these type of quarrels, I believe that the answer is that at some level they haven't gone beyond the concept of self. At least that's my idea about it.
Mhm.
Richard.
Thank you, Ayya. These 6 things you may notice here that the first 3 are towards his companions: bodily acts of loving kindness, verbal acts, and mental acts. The next one is with his virtuous companions, uses things in common. If one has the first 3 established, then his mind is always going to be in a loving state. So he's going to see his companions as virtuous. Maybe an outsider who has anger and various things might come up in various situations are not going to see it that way. But the person who has the first 3 established knows how difficult it is to go against the current of the world. So he's going to find the positive things in the others. So he's going to use everything that they're using together and seeing them in their virtues. Okay, these people are really trying. This is difficult. They're really trying. So the 4th one, possessing in common with his companions, right? In other words, there isn't one rule for me, right? Or for you, and a different rule for me, or one rule for me and a different rule for you. In other words, no, we're all established in the same thing, okay? Is to possess this holy life and follow these rules and regulations. And then in the, trying to get there, trying to perfect ourselves. And then the last one is possessing in common with his companions. Okay, that's right view. This is because right view is for all of us. It's the same right view. There's 2 types of right view. There's beginning right view, which is just right view, but there's noble right view, but they're both right views. So regardless, okay, whether one has gotten to the point of, I prefer to say hearing entry or not, the right view is the same. So this is something we both possess. You're not going to come to a position where the Eightfold Path is different for you. So your right view is a different right view, or it's different for me, a different right view. So we possess this idea, this concept, you might say, together, right? So it's kind of like an unfolding, of your conscious development, you might say, right? That brings you into these states. Anyways, this just came to me as we were going through this section. I noticed this pattern, towards his companions for the first 3, virtuous companions for the next one, possessing in common for the next one, right? And possessing in common again for the last one, like that. Anyways, that's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Maureen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I see it that he's advocating for the absolute bedrock of his beliefs and what he's trying to teach people. And some people focus all on the rules and the vinyaya and that stuff, and others on the more the spiritual, the practices of meditation and things like that. But both of them are based on that bedrock of his teachings. And that's how I see he can bring them together, for them to get back to the bedrock of what he's talking about. Anyway,
Right.
that's how I see it.
Thank you. It is, to me, very interesting how this noble view, which is in common, has got such a close connection to virtue and mutual kindness. All of those wrong views that the other philosophers were worried about, many of them had to do with the problem about uh, uh, crime and punishment, about the how karma works and how the result of bad behavior comes to be received and experienced, whether it be by way of a subsequent rebirth in a bad destination, or coming from the difficult or painful experiences one may have in this lifetime. Saying how does virtue or how does a good and evil get passed onto the self, onto the individual, viewed as a self or a soul. And so in the Buddhism, the last part of the Four Noble Truths is the Eightfold Path, which is to be developed. And the middle section of the Eightfold Path is the cultivation of right thought, which is the thought of kindness and non-harming, and then the parts that are related to sila. And so, in effect, it's not, don't worry about philosophical concepts and speculations about the past and future. Just be good. And the very practice of striving to develop along the lines of the Eightfold Path has got the quality of gently and gradually wearing away at the tendency of self-conceit and clinging to different kinds of arguments and opinions, and making the person to become soft, malleable, harmonious, and receptive. And that very softness, then, when it's subsequently combined with aspects of meditation, is where this noble right view has the chance to be realized. I'm going to go back and continue reading the sutta. Mhm. How does the view that is noble and emancipating lead one who practices it to the complete ending of suffering? It's when a mendicant has gone to a wilderness or the root of a tree or to an empty hut and reflects like this: is there anything that I'm overcome with internally and haven't given up, because of which I might not accurately know and see? And these are the things which, if we have them, they prevent knowing and seeing. If a mendicant is overcome with sensual desire, it's their mind that's overcome. If a mendicant is overcome with ill will, dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse, doubt, pursuing speculation about this world, pursuing speculation about the next world, are arguing, quarreling, disputing, continually wounding others with barbed words, it's their mind that's overcome. they understand there is nothing that I'm overcome with internally and haven't given up, because of which I might not accurately know and see. My mind is properly disposed for awakening to the truths. This is the first knowledge they have achieved, that's noble and transcendent, and is not shared with the ordinary people. So overcoming the 5 hindrances and overcoming arguing, quarreling, disputing, and overcoming speculation about this world and the next world. Or you could say abandoning, letting go, or the non-existence of those qualities would mean that in the absence of all of those qualities, they would understand that the mind is properly disposed for awakening to the truths. Which one of the foundations of mindfulness would that be?
Context for that? I was actually thinking about another question.
Is it the Chittanupassana? Yeah. So if they reflect whether these qualities are present or not present, they will see, if they see these qualities are not present, then we see the mind is properly disposed for awakening. And if you see that those qualities are present in the mind, don't be harsh with yourself. You need to just bear and just practice vipassana and mindfulness and see that these qualities are dukkha, and that they're impermanent, they're impersonal, and make the adhitthana to learn how to abandon and to practice for the non-arising of these qualities.
So I just thought it was interesting there that before doing that reflection, there is like the standard refrain that is usually said before the practice of meditation. And also part of the, or at least according to some monastics, part of the role or function of like the sammasamadhi is also to like keep the hindrances suppressed. So I wonder if it's implied here that this is a person who is also meditating and then also checking, like it's part of the process of meditation basically to sort of see that the hindrances are suppressed, and maybe like some samadhi is implied in here. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, this monk is free of those unwholesome qualities. So they will have samadhi if they are free from those unwholesome qualities. Yeah. Okay, Richard.
Thank you. I was going to make a different comment, but that question of the previous person, he's gone beyond the 5 hindrances, or she or they, whatever, but they may not have entered into samadhi yet. But the 5 hindrances are not stopping them in any way. But the comment I was going to make is about the words here for mind that's being translated as mind is chitta. In my opinion, chitta means state of mind. So, like you were saying, it's chitta, right? The 4 foundations of mindfulness. Okay, now I think you probably came to that conclusion from seeing the Pali word there is chitta, right? So these states of mind, a state of mind full of desire or anger or whatever, sloth and torpor, etc., etc. He's overcome these states of mind. For some reason here I've written a note. Bhikkhu Bodhi says obsessed in these states, and I wrote there a better translation might be distraction. In other words, these are distractions. So you're trying to get past these hindrances. You know, it might be slight or small. Saying obsessed almost makes it sound like the person's insane with them or something. You know what I mean? It might be a little too strong. So I wrote distraction. But when you get to the part where he says, my mind is well disposed. Now, this is Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. The mind in there is mana. So what he's saying is that this mana, these I am this, you know, or this is mine, I am this is myself. Those tendencies have been reduced. That's why he's not responding with the hindrances, because he's reducing. He hasn't overcome them yet, but he's reducing those tendencies. So in that having reduced those tendencies, that's what allows him to like put forth the effort and try to transcend the mana, right? Because mana is one of the 5 higher hindrances, right? So, you know, which is going to be dissipated, you know, with nibbana. So he's moving forward to get rid of that. You know what I mean? And so he's kind of lowered the temperature, you might say, right? They say sometimes like lower the temperature. So he's lowered the temperature. So his mana, his tendency towards conceit like that, you know, has been reduced, and that's what allows him to move forward at that point. Anyways, that's my opinion. Thank you for listening.
This is what I think is very interesting about this particular sutta, because it makes it so clear that this noble view doesn't need to be seen as a set of ideas and concepts or as a catechism, but rather it's about a process to be practiced. Okay, I'll share again and we can go on. Furthermore, a noble disciple reflects, when I develop, cultivate, and make much of this view, do I personally gain serenity and quenching? Serenity is samatha, and quenching is nibbutin. They understand, when I develop, cultivate, and make much of this view, I personally gain serenity and quenching. This is their second knowledge. In this case, the word nibbutin, as far as I understand, is not necessarily implying the attainment of nibbana, but it's on the way to nibbana. That's one of the shades of meaning of that quenching of the asavas, which and all of the tendencies that would lead one to rebirth. So when I develop, cultivate, and make much of this view, so it's said that this person is not one of the ordinary people. This is a noble disciple. So that's one who has stream entry, or once returner, or a non-returner, or an arahant. So they may not yet have gained the goal, but they have the very clear vision that they know this leads to the goal. This leads to that quenching, to nibbana. So if I develop it, cultivate it and make much of it. Make much of what this view, this deity, do I personally gain serenity and quenching. They understand when I develop, cultivate, and make much of this view, I personally gain serenity and quenching. That's their second knowledge. Furthermore, a noble disciple reflects, are there any ascetics or Brahmins outside of the Buddhist community who have the same kind of view that I have? And they understand there are no ascetics or Brahmins outside of the Buddhist community who have the same kind of view that I have. This is their third knowledge. And then this next one I think is very interesting. Furthermore, the noble disciple reflects, do I have the same nature as a person accomplished in view? And what, bhikkhus, is the nature of a person accomplished in view? It will be like, there's one set of teachings that's always given in terms of approximate cause, that those are the supporting conditions that would lead to a particular state or a particular accomplishment. And then there's another set of teaching about the qualities that you would expect to see in one who has attained that. So that's like the subsequent results. And if you want to know if you have had the breakthrough and obtained Strumentary or not, one of the ways you could examine yourself is to examine your nature and see if it is matching to what's given here as being the nature of one who has this noble view, one who is accomplished in view. This is the nature of a person accomplished in view. Though they may fall into a kind of offense for which resolution is possible, they quickly disclose, clarify, and reveal it to the teacher or to a sensible spiritual companion. And having revealed it, they restrain themselves in the future. Suppose there was a little baby boy. If he puts his hand or foot on a burning coal, he quickly pulls it back. In the same way, this is the nature of a person accomplished in view. You can see this very clearly with people who are really deep and profound practitioners. Especially, I see this in terms of caring for insects and small animals and caring for nature, that are people who any kind of whiff of anything that could be dishonest or intentional falsehood or anything like that, that they have got, that the sila has gone to such a state of refinement that they're afraid, they're really naturally, intuitively afraid of committing a fault. Just the same way a child who knows the danger of picking up a piece of burning coal would be afraid to pick up that burning coal. And seeing anger, resentment, grudge, all those tendencies in a way that's got a strong resistance to that. So then, if they've made an offense, they quickly reveal it to the teacher or a sensible companion, and they restrain themselves in the future. I may pause here for another minute. We talked about the having a view that if this if this view is developed, it will lead to quenching. That this view is unique to Buddhism, and that this view has the result of creating that powerful motivation to pull back from any kind of unwholesome or unskillful behavior.
Yeah. So I guess I'm a little bit confused about the sutta right now. So because the person who has like permanently overcome the five hindrances is like the fully awakened person, but someone no, but so my understanding is that even someone is a stream enterer, they might still have the five hindrances come up, uh, and also later down in the sutta, there's also feeling a keen regard for the training in higher ethics, higher mind, and higher wisdom, which obviously someone who was fully enlightened wouldn't really need to train in higher wisdom. So
I'm quite sure that this sutta is talking about stream entry or above, but is not talking about exclusively the qualities of an arahant. So one who has stream entry would sometimes, well, they're at the foot of the tree in meditation, sometimes they experience the freedom from the hindrance in those qualities. And clearly, if they're able to commit these minor faults, then they would have not be fully enlightened, but they would be one who has gained a stream entry and is incapable of doing certain kinds of unskillful deeds, but some minor deeds they are capable of doing. And being able to see the truth, being able to see that this leads to nibbana. It's like like being at the well. You can see the water, but you can't drink it because you're not yet there, but you know that there's water there. Not going to call on flow in this room, and then we'll go back to that online.
I was reflecting on the how the view leads to stillness. I was thinking about a conversation I had with someone a few months ago where they were like, "Why do I have to have compassion for these people who suck?" And I'm like, I don't think they care if you dislike them. I think it only upsets you, actually, and that if it it seems in my experience that when I hold the view, oh, this person is doing this hurtful thing not because they like woke up and decided to be evil, but because there's a lot of delusion and aversion and maybe desire for things that are causing people to act in these ways. And I feel like when I perceive their behavior in that way, it like doesn't necessarily heal an injury I might have sustained, but it like takes the sting out, I guess.
I'll call on Richard.
It's important to understand that one can temporarily abandon, you might say, the five hindrances. But abandon is sort of like a child in a playpen, right? They got several different toys, and 1 minute they're playing with something over here, and then they abandon that, and their attention gets distracted. And they go over here, they're playing with that, but they can go back. Mostly the five hindrances won't be completely left behind until one becomes a non-returner, because then however you want to put it, their mind is so highly developed that they don't have sensual desire anymore. They don't have anger and ill will anymore. The second two of the five lower fetters. Okay, so they've overcome the five lower fetters. They could possibly have the other three hindrances, but probably they're not going to have doubt, because that doubt at that point is more of like self-doubt. Oh, can I enter into the jhana? But a person who's a non-returner has mastered the jhanas, including the five, in most cases, including the five formless states, and so they're not going to have a question in their mind whether or not they can, go in and do those type of things. But, on a particular day, maybe the physical body's ill or something, so they might be a little tired or something like that. Probably not distraction either. The tiredness is more of just a physical thing. But getting back to the sutta here, there's an important thing. Unfortunately, I have Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, so it might not be the same as what you're reading. So when it says obtain serenity and quenching, for this Pali word quenching, I have a note here where I say stillness. And the reason is that this samatha is to settle down. And then you settle it down to the point where it becomes still. Okay, it's not enlightenment, it's not nibbana, but that stillness of mind, right? That bedrock condition, you might say, of a totally still mind is what may give you the ability to make that transition to nibbana, if you see that all things, including these states, are volitionary produced. In other words, your own mind is saying, yeah, I'll experience this state, I'll experience that state. They're volitionary produced, just like we have volitional production to take birth, or we have volitional production to speak or to move or to think a thought or something like that. So these states are all volitionally produced, and that's the key to seeing what nibbana really is, that you are producing your own craving. So because you're producing it, you can stop that production. You can, if you let go of all the things that you think are necessary to produce that craving. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening.
I want to see if there are others who have a comment. Okay, Maitri. And then Sharanya. Maitri.
I have a question, Ayya, about the fruits of the path and the jhanas. The way I've seen it is that at least the higher jhanas, the third and the fourth, the immaterial and the formless jhanas, the way I've thought of this is that these are extra embellishments if you can gain them, but you can still attain stream entry and the fruits of the path without being able to get to the third and the fourth jhanas. This is my question, Ayya.
The four jhanas are very often described as quite intrinsic to awakening. It does say in several places that even at the first jhana, if one is able to see that state as being conditioned on having the nature of dukkha, that then it's possible to abandon all craving or conceit and the connection of being one who is possessing that jhana or that meditative state, and standing on that to enter into the highest. And so, in that case, definitely the scholars who I trust agree that it's possible to enter nirvana from the first jhana. It seems to be very normal to have the 4 jhanas. It seems that the immaterial attainments are not gained by, they're not nearly so universal as being meditations obtained by the arahants. There even seems to be at some point some discussion between those who had the immaterial attainments or those who didn't, as far as whether there's any distinction that it's better to obtain the full arahantship one way versus the other way. I really appreciate. I remember Richard has commented that it's not, the distinction is not all that like hard and fast between the immaterial attainments and the 4 jhanas. That they're sort of like aspect of each other that can be realized with greater and greater clarity. Just the same way like the practice of vipassana and the practice of jhana are not really such a hard and a fast distinction, but like the perfection of vipassana could be something that's happening within jhana, and they're both like just 2 aspects of meditation. So, but I definitely have the impression that if you read those suttas, that for an arahant to have the 4 jhanas is so completely normal that it, don't cut yourself short and think, oh, just let me just get the first jhana and that's going to be all I need. Or think that I'm so smart that I only need to get the first jhana and then I'll be able to reach the goal or something like that. Because the 4th jhana does have a very strong quality of stillness, and the stillness in the 4th jhana is something that seems to be like very natural and for being able to go to the stillness of that final nibbutta, that final stilling of the disturbances of the restlessness in the mind.
Thank you, Ayya.
Sharanya.
So my question is kind of pretty basic, and it may even not be fully related to what we're talking about. So I apologize for asking this question. But my question is, even though I know that cultivating a non-self is a necessary step for stream entry, is it an option? Well, is it possible to reach Nibbana and still hold a sense of self? So I'm thinking of people like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who clearly had a sense of self. Ramana Maharishi, not so much. His words were kind of just more vague. So I'm thinking about a lot of Hindu saints. So according to Buddhist philosophy, you cannot be an arahant if you still hold on to any kind of sense of self, correct?
That is correct. So the only way to wiggle out of it is if we think that through the course of history over the past 2,000 years, that the word about atta, which is understood in Hinduism, especially in the Vedanta, has somehow morphed and changed its meaning. So it's not really the same thing as the atta, which the Brahmin philosophers were referring to, and that which they quarreled about, and that which the Buddha definitely clearly said that holding onto speculative views about that self is an impediment to awakening. So you will go beyond that self. The reason why I'm saying that I'm not trying to make any judgments about that, which I know very little, but I know that in Vedanta, or I've read that in Vedanta, there's an idea that what's called the atta in that system is not the same thing as ego. There's like a small self and a transcendental self, something like that. So I don't. This is not the system that we follow, and the Buddha said here in this sutta that this teaching is the only way to nibbana. So any teaching which is based on the belief that there's a permanent, substantial entity, separate, a separate, permanent, substantial entity, which is self. That if you've got that concept, that will be an impediment to enlightenment.
So it could be that they were arguing about two different things, because even when they talk about the self in Hinduism, I think they say aham brahmasmi, I am that, which I think refers to universal consciousness, but I think Buddhism goes beyond that.
I could send you a link to a Australian philosopher who has tried to reconcile the Vedanta with Buddhism. She corresponded with several of the Australian bhikkhus to try to get them to go along with her ideas. And in the end, she got so much flack about it that she gave up the effort and and stopped publishing her arguments about the theme that Vedanta and Buddhism are really the same thing. But you know, Buddhism and Hinduism have coexisted for such a long time, and so there's been a conversation about these ideas, and so then that's why I'm just saying that some of the ideas of Buddhism have been perhaps integrated into what has become the modern Vedanta to some extent, but beyond that, I couldn't comment. And please don't go telling anybody that I said that Vedanta is just the same as Buddhism, because I don't have enough knowledge to make a statement like that. I'll call on Ananaya.
One of the things that when we talk about attaining stream entry and all the various qualities, etc., I remember Ajahn Chah made mention that some people naturally have an ease of gaining meditative states, but they lack the wisdom to really develop what they experience. And there are others who have difficulty with meditative states, or it's not as easy to attain meditative states, but they have a deep wisdom, and that wisdom develops and they gain the understanding in that way. So you have to have some concentration, some level of samadhi, but this whole thing of just how much, and if you have that, is it a guarantee or whatever? It's like not that quite that simplistic. There are a lot of nuances. At least that's my understanding at this point.
Yes, but I think I'm trying to claim that wisdom or right view, the noble right view, causes a person to become peaceful and calm.
Yes.
And
Say
and,
that. Yes.
And so the right view definitely supports samadhi, and it also supports, it leads to awakening. It leads to the final samatha and nibbutta, the final tranquility and stilling of the formations. So that quality, if a person has a lot of what seems to think they have a lot of wisdom, a lot of conceptual grasp of the teaching of the Buddha, and it is not causing them to become calm, then they ought to consider they've got the wrong end of the stick.
Right. Well, then in that case, it's just a head trip. The wisdom has not been integrated. That's not what I'm referring to.
Right.
I'm referring to where wisdom has been integrated.
Yes.
Not just being a talking, able, like the Anguttara guy is just coming out of your mouth or whatever. No, I'm not referring to that.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and give Richard a chance after the next bullet point. So I want to go back to sharing. So they've gained serenity and quenching. They understand that Buddhism has got this quality, and then they have got the strong tendency to pull back from any kind of wrongdoing. Now, come furthermore, this is the fifth knowledge. Furthermore, a noble disciple reflects, do I have the same nature as a person accomplished in view? And what is the nature of that person accomplished in view? This is the nature of a person accomplished in view. Although they might manage a diverse spectrum of duties for their spiritual companions, they still feel a keen regard for the training in higher ethics, higher mind, and higher wisdom. Suppose there was a cow with a baby calf. She watches her calf devotedly as she grazes. In the same way, this is the nature of a person accomplished in view. Although they might manage a diverse spectrum of duties for their spiritual companions, they still feel a keen regard for the training in higher ethics and higher wisdom. They understand, I have the same nature as the person accomplished in view. Earlier on, they spoke about doing service, for the community as being a quality of a harmonious sangha. And this does not mean that it's the nature of one who's accomplished to do a lot of diverse services. It's the distinctive part of the nature is that they constantly feel the keen regard for the training in higher ethics, higher mind, and higher wisdom. That's Adi Sila, Adi Chitta, and Adi Panya. In the metaphor, when the cow is grazing, this is the practical work that the cow has to do, is eating the grass and chewing on her cud. But even while she's doing that, she devotedly watches over her calf. So then the higher mind, the bodhi potential, this is like the calf. And so you would be tuned in to that potential or to that quality, if you have that quality, to the extent that you have it. If you have a teacher who's enlightened, one way that I've heard suggested is to be mindful in mindfulness of the body, to be mindful of the teacher's body. So you are mindful whether the teacher is standing, sitting, walking, or lying down. Mindful of the way the teacher reaches for something or lifts something, or how they bring the food to their lips and so forth, like that. And in so doing, by having the focus there, it's possible to intuitively cognize how the teacher's liberation is manifesting. And then you sort of alternate between the mindfulness internally and the mindfulness externally. Or even if you're in a noble community with several companions, that then being aware of several people are around, like being able to read the mood of a room. So like if you're sitting in a meditation hall where the people are practicing meditation, and you have several people who are practicing in jhana, that you would have the ability to encompass their mind with your mind and be mindful of that. But within, whether it's by your noble friends, or whether it's from simply hearing the Dhamma and reflecting and practicing with the Dhamma, that you know that you have something, and we want that something to be able to grow and develop, and to be cultivated and to become sustained. And so that's that quality. And then I'll go to this last quality. Do I have the same strength as a person accomplished in view? What is the strength of a person accomplished in view? The strength of a person accomplished in view is that when the teaching and training proclaimed by the realized one are being taught, they pay attention, apply the mind, concentrate wholeheartedly, and actively listen. They understand, I have the same strength as a person accomplished in view. This is their sixth knowledge. Do I have the same strength as a person accomplished in view? And then it repeats again. Do I have the same strength as a person accomplished in view? What is the strength of a person accomplished in view? When the teaching and training proclaimed by a realized one are being taught, they find inspiration in the meaning and the teaching, and find joy connected with the teaching. They understand, I have this same strength as the person accomplished in view. This is the seventh knowledge. So these are 7 factors that they've properly investigated their own nature through the realization of the fruit of stream entry. A noble disciple with these 7 factors has the fruit of stream entry. So the last 3 that we spoke about were having the constant, a keen regard for the training in higher ethics, higher mind, and higher wisdom. And then when the training is being proclaimed, they pay attention, apply the mind, concentrate wholeheartedly, and actively listen. And the next one is when the teaching is being proclaimed, they find inspiration in the meaning and the teaching. They find joy connected with the teaching. So these are qualities of persons who have realized, and here it's specifically alluding to stream entry, who have realized at least stream entry, having these characteristics. So if you want to know if you are a stream winner, or if you are partway on the way to being a stream winner, or if at the moment, just at the moment, whether your mind is disposed in a way which is conducive to making the breakthrough to stream entry, then if you noticed the presence of, to some extent, of these qualities, then you would know what your state of mind is and where you stand in a connection to the goal for which this teaching is given. Now, I've gone this far, and I'm going to come back to Richard, and I apologize for wanting to have enough time within our hour. Oh, I'm going to stop the share.
Thank you, Ayya. The first thing I was going to say, I'll say second, because this is very important here. There was some question about how this all relates to jhana and everything. Well, this last section here, where it says, in Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, gains gladness connected with the Dhamma. So that word gladness, it's being translated in your translation by Bhikkhu Sujato as joy, pamojam. And that pamojam, Buddha says, when one gains pamojam, right, samadhi, a lot of times translated as concentration, is going to happen right after that. You know, it's very close. And you gain that gladness when you've abandoned, temporarily at least, the 5 hindrances. So this is that, you can see how this is developing in a very certain way if you understand the relationship to these different concepts with each other. And that's why it ends on this note, because remember, he's gone away to a secluded place. He's sitting down by himself now. He's going to make the effort. So he examines himself thoroughly, or herself, doesn't matter, themselves. They examine themselves thoroughly, right? Am I really capable of this right now? And by seeing all these qualities, gladness arises, and boom, okay, he's ready. Now he's going to go into the jhana, and he's going to start proceeding, And again, this is a noble disciple. So he's going to start proceeding, going to become a once returner, which is a perfection of the jhanas, because the Brahma realm of form, that's the once return. And then if he goes beyond that into the formless realms, he can become a no returner. But like you said, though, it is in the suttas that a very accomplished disciple can even just experience first jhana and realize the fact that these are just mentally produced states, and see beyond that and let go of craving and everything. Even at that level, there's actually a sutta about that. A certain, it's kind of long, a certain person goes to join the Sangha. He was a leader of another group to learn everything about Buddhist teaching so he can go back and help his followers who are having a hard time getting requisites and stuff because the public is giving the Buddhists all the requisites. So they say to him, why don't you go there and like learn the Buddhism? So he goes, Buddha allows him to become the disciple, and he meets a group of disciples and he asks them, have you attained Arahat? This particular group. And they said, yes, we've all attained Arahat. And so they, well, how did you do it? And they said, all we can tell you is that we've attained it. Okay, this is because they were the group that did it purely by pana vimukti, okay, by understanding. They penetrated by understanding, but they can't tell him exactly how it happened because it's an individual thing that your mind went and got the understanding. Whereas those who get Cheto Vimukti first, who are perfected through the jhanas, right? And they have a system. That's the Eightfold Path ending in Samadhi. They have a very precise system so they can explain to others exactly, okay, if you follow this with this philosophical understanding, you're going to be able to penetrate, okay? If you do it right and you really want to do it. So if you get to the fifth formless level, you've let go of so much. Your mind is so subtle and everything that with the right understanding, you can springboard right into arahantship. At the lower levels, it's a little more difficult, but it can be done. Anyways, but I just wanted to point out this thing about this gladness here, because that state of mind, Buddha says, the prerequisite for entering into the jhana. Now, the other quick thing I wanted to say was, I think it was Sharanya. She quoted
Yes.
Aham Brahmasmi, and she says, I am that. No, that's a wrong translation. Aham Brahmasmi means I am Brahman. There's Tat Twamasi. Tat Twamasi is loosely translated as that I am. So those are two kind of different philosophical concepts in various schools. But unfortunately, over time, people, if they don't study sufficiently, they don't understand these things. They don't know the nuances. I'm not going to go into any of that. But it's very easy. I'm not blaming her or saying she did something wrong or bad. Right? I'm just saying that it's very easy to misunderstand these things and kind of get a wrong idea of what's being talked about. And the same thing happens in Buddhism. That's why I'm bringing it up. Depending on the translator, one translator thinks this word is better than that word and everything like that. And so for one person's mind, maybe that works. For another person's mind, they don't quite, get the meaning. The meaning might be obscured slightly and everything. So anyway, it's sort of important to grab all that. But going back anyways to this sutta, that the important thing to understand is this is a development that Buddha is talking about to get you to that point. You're alone in the hut. You're ready to go. You can see, yes, I've got the qualities. That makes you glad. Okay, I'm good. I'm ready. Boom. And then you can move forward. Anyways, that's my view. Thank you for listening.
Well, I appreciate it from everybody this your patient listening and this very useful and I think uplifting description that really shows the heart qualities and the type of psychology or the states of mind that are connected with the noble ditti, which is very much the same as the arhant's samadhi. I believe that there's more to explore in this. It's a wonderful, profound subject, and I think we can look more over the coming week or two on these themes, remembering that this is aspects of practicing for peace, that the inner peace or the inner stillness and the social and communal harmony, which is a wonderful gift to the world. are both two things that are naturally aspects of the Buddhist wisdom. So we can close by giving respect to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Ayya.